Okay, so the lighting is probably absolutely terrible here, but I have decided to, I'm doing a book unhaul, and I didn't want to have to carry all these books up from my parents' basement. So that's where I am right now. I'm down in the bowels of the house. More upstairs when I get to those ones, but I just didn't feel like carrying all these books upstairs. So I have been going through all of my old books. I've had over 1,000 books, and I hadn't bought any new books for quite a few years because I just didn't have the money. And so majority of my books are from like the 90s, 2000s up to, probably 2012 or 13. And so I wanted to go through all the old ones, get rid of them if I don't think I'll ever read them. And some of these are from when I was a child and everything. I've never actually done a solid unhaul because I used to just basically collect books. So I was, totally a book collector rather than somebody who actually, would get rid of books that I didn't like. I would just keep them all. So, but I want to make room now because I have limited space. I want to make room for all my books that I want to keep to be out on my shelves and not have them buried in boxes in my parents' basement where I am right now. So that's part of why I'm doing the Read It and Unhaul It challenge, but then these are just ones that I knew I wasn't going to read. So I've kind of divided them into a few different stacks. The first stack I'll show you is just ones that I'm getting rid of because there's duplicates. Because my sister and I, we lived together and we both had copies of some of the books. And I mean, we've been living on the farm together since 2007. So that's, what would that be? 17 years. So we finally decided that, you know what, if we've got duplicates, we're going to get rid of them because we're going to live together as old spinsters forever. So these are duplicates. So this is a set of my classics. This is a box set that I had. I have Little Women, Jane Eyre, Adam Bede, Wuthering Heights, Emma, and Pride and Prejudice. And I decided I would get rid of this set. I have duplicates of all of these. I would get rid of this set because the other set that my sister had is nicer quality. So that's the only reason I'm getting rid of those. That's those ones. Then I have Anne of Avonlea and Anne of the Island. These are duplicates as well. I've read the first Anne of Green Gables book and just absolutely loved it. So I'm looking forward to reading the rest of them, but these are duplicates. My sister has a full set with this nice cover set. So I'm getting rid of those. I've got quite a few of these Mary Stuart, Elizabeth Peters, and Victoria Holt. These were ones that I loved when I was younger. And these are all duplicates. So, and actually this one here, My Brother Michael, is one of my all-time favorite books. They're older, but they're thriller adventure type books and I love them. This one here, Die for Love. This is one of my favorite of Elizabeth Peters' Jacqueline Kirby series. It takes place at a romance writers convention in the, I think it's the 90s, but it's quite funny. And I have lots of Victoria Holt. She was another one, kind of wrote gothic romance, mystery type books. And we have a ton of those, and these are just duplicates again. So get rid of the duplicates. I have Wind in the Willows. This is just an average old copy of it. I actually have a really nice special edition copy of that one. This is one of my favorite books. I have this copy of The Hobbit because we have a much nicer copy of that as well. I have a few of these type of books that are, some of those like memoirs and stuff about growing up on the prairies that I like to read. I have duplicates of some of them, so I'm getting rid of that. The Chicken Soup for the Horse Lover's Soul. We have an extra copy of that. Getting rid of that one for now. Apparently I had 3 copies of My Brother Michael because here's another one. It is one of my favorite books of hers. I have a few Phyllis Whitney that I'm getting rid of because we've got duplicates. She's another one who was writing in the 90s and early 2000s, I think. maybe the 80s as well. Let me see. Yeah, 92. Writing mystery thrillers with female main characters. And I want to reread all of her books. I have them in my jar and see which ones I want to keep because I haven't actually read all of them, but they are another. She was another one of those authors that I loved when I was younger. Here's another one, Fond Memories of Prairie Life in the 1930s. That's a duplicate. I have that one. Victoria Holt again, Mistress of Midlin. I remember this one being one of my favorite romantic suspense novels when I was a teenager, but it's a duplicate. According to Jake and the Kid, stories by W.O. Mitchell. W.O. Mitchell is actually one of my all-time favorite authors, and I have pretty much everything he's ever written over at my house, and this is just a duplicate. And then I have, oh, that's another Mary Stewart one. And then I have a bunch of the Chronicles of Narnia, but I actually have like an omnibus of all of those. And so I'm going to get rid of this set. We're doing a book sale for our sanctuary. And so I thought some books like this would be real popular for the kids, you know, for at the sanctuary book sale. So then I have quite a bunch of kids books. I just grabbed a few. These are the Judy Blume ones that I had that I'm going to be getting rid of. I had bought a ton of these. It wasn't even necessarily that I liked them when I was a kid. I bought these later at a used book sale because I was, when I was getting into trying to write for children, I wanted to read some of, you know, the real popular books and everything. These ones were popular when I was a kid. So I decided I would unhaul all of those type of books. And I want to read, if I'm going to focus on writing for children again, I want to read more modern ones. So that's why I'm getting rid of those. Then I have, when I was digging through my stuff, I found I had 1, 2, 3, 4 Janet Ivanovich books, and I've never actually read them. I had picked them up at a used bookstore, and I was, you know, I've got, like, this is the 17th one, the first one, the second one, and then this one is a between the numbers one. So, but it's a huge, huge series, and I'm never going to collect all of them and read them. So I thought I would just unhaul those ones. I don't even remember what they're about, other than that they're, I think, a Private Eye or something. I've got this one here, Tuesdays with Maury. That one is Mitch Albom. That was back when the 5 People You Meet in Heaven was like super, super popular. I had that one too. It's somewhere that I'm going to unhaul. And I just had, I had read both of them way back when they were originally popular, and it's just not my style anymore. It's not something I'm going to read again. This one here, Luna by Sharon Butala. I've read this one a couple of times, and I decided to get rid of it. It's basically a story set in the prairies, and the reason why I had read it a couple of times is because it's very, the situations and everything are, you know, like the world that I grew up in, but I just find it incredibly bleak and depressing, so I am going to just unhaul it because I'll never read it again. I have this one here, The Gargoyle by Andrew Davidson, and this one I read a while ago, and it actually is a super interesting book. I just know I'm never going to read it again, so that's why I'm going to unhaul it. But it was super interesting. It was about a guy, he's in a burn ward, and he is so disfigured that no one from his past life would recognize him. But then this woman named Marianne Angle shows up in his hospital room, and she is a sculptor who makes gargoyles. And she claims that they first met at in a monastery in medieval Germany, where she was a nun and he was a wounded mercenary left to die. And she goes about that she's going to prove it to him by telling him the story and everything. And so it has to do with the possibility of past lives, and just, it was a really interesting book, but I just know I'm never going to read it again. So I'm going to unhaul that one. I do also have, I had 3 old Nancy Drew books. I was a big Nancy Drew fan when I was a kid, but I just, again, I know I'm never going to read these, and I may as well let some other kid read them. I read pretty much when I was a kid. I read, I think, pretty much all of the Nancy Drew books. I loved the idea of her solving mysteries and everything, as unrealistic as the books were. And then I have a few of these like really, really old books. Like these ones here are the Timber Trail Riders. And these are from, oh gosh, when are these ones from? 1963. So these are from like the 60s. And again, it's just something I know I'm never going to actually read. So I had a bunch of books like that. So I'm going to get rid of those ones. I also have this one that I'm going to put on my book sale. This is 101 Dog Tricks by Kira Sundance. And it's a fun book. It goes through all kinds of tricks that you can teach your dog and everything. It's just that I have farm dogs and I'm never going to take the time to teach them tricks. At one time, I was kind of interested in it and thought about it, but I just know I'm never going to actually do it because my dogs are just farm dogs that like to do their own thing and aren't particularly keen on learning things that don't involve farm-related things. So I figured that one would be a fun one for someone else. Then, like I had mentioned in some of my in my Read It and Haul It videos, I have decided to get rid of all my old Tom Clancy. So I've got Clear and Present Danger, Sum of All Fears. I've got quite a few of them. I'm just not into military thrillers anymore. And these are, I mean, I remember reading and liking this one when I was a teenager and in university, but I'm just never going to read them again. And it's just not my style anymore. So I gave him the ones that my mom didn't have to her because she likes his writing, and otherwise I'm unhauling those. Let's see. I also have The Hunt for Red October, which was another one that I liked when I was younger, but again, I'm not going to reread those. And I also have some Robert Ludlum ones that I also decided to unhaul because I'm just not into spy and military fiction anymore. Let's see, what else do I got here? There's a couple more Ludlum ones. And then I just have a bunch of old military thrillers as well that I was back when I was into that in like high school and stuff. I had picked these up. You know, Fail Safe, that's a classic. These are all just, yeah, military thrillers. And like I said, I just know I'm never going to actively read the military thrillers anymore. I'm just not into them. And then I have this big stack here. Now, this is an interesting stack because this is books that I had gotten when I was a teenager and in university. And they're all Christian fiction. And I just know I'm never going to read some of these. Again, this is a series called The Treasure of the Caribbean. It was a pirate series. And I remember reading the first one and I never did read the other two. But again, it's just something that I know I'm never going to actually read. I'm not really into reading the religious fiction anymore. This series here, this one was probably the hardest one for me to get rid of, but I just know I'm not going to read it. And this is The Secret of the Rose. And the reason this series was hard for me to get rid of is because this was the series that I loved, this series back in high school. And it was the set of books that actually made me fall in love with roses as a flower. And I'm crazy about roses. I have lots of them around my yard and everything. But again, it's one of those cases where, like, this one's by Michael Phillips. And I remember them being quite strongly religious. And I'm at the point now where I don't mind having some, if the main characters have, religion and that kind of stuff, and or if it's, that kind of fiction, I don't mind it. But when it's really on the nose and, basically pushing religion, that's when I'm not real keen on it. And so I remember these ones being quite strong that way. Anything that Michael Phillips has written, I think, is kind of that way. And I just know if I read them again, I would be disappointed because I had loved these back in high school, but I just know if I read them again, they wouldn't have the same feel to them, having grown up and moved on from where I was back then and the religious attitudes of the time and everything. So, but they're definitely a harder one for me to get rid of because of nostalgia. But, I'm never going to read them. And that's where I'm trying to be a little more brutal with myself that way and actually get rid of books like that. This was another one that I had from when I was in high school. This was a series, Land of the Far Horizon by Patricia Hickman. And it was a series of books set in Australia around the time of when Australia was just being formed. And I remember reading the first 3, I think, and really enjoying them. But again, they're books I'm never going to read again. They're Christian fiction. I'm just not in that place anymore, and I know I'm never going to read them again, so somebody else may as well enjoy them. And, oh yeah, this one. Remember back when this was like all the rage and everybody was reading The Shack and there was a movie about it? And yeah, me too. I read it. I'm never going to read it again. End of story. This one here is kind of just a funny memory. That's why I kept it out separate to talk about as a funny memory, because it's Colorado Lady by Mary Langer Smith. It's another Christian fiction. It's set in the Old West. And I just remember with this one that I loved it when I was in high school because I just loved the whole concept and the main character and I liked the male character and everything. And then I tried to read it again when I was in, I think it might have been after university. I tried to read it again and it was so cringy. Oh, it was just absolute cringe worthy. It was terrible. The writing was terrible. This is another trilogy that I'm getting rid of. This was Annals of Lystria. This is another Christian fiction one. This one was set in medieval times. I remember reading the first one and really liking it, and I think I read the second one. I don't think I ever did get to the third one. And they were interesting enough, but again, religious fiction. And I think I only have one more. Oh yeah, this series. So this series was another one. It was called The Abbey. There was 3 books in it. And this was another Christian fiction one. And I remember I read the first one, and then I never read the other 2, I don't think. But I remember it being quite intense and everything, and you weren't actually sure whether things were going to turn out all right because, medieval time period and, really intense stuff. But again, just never going to actually read them, and so somebody else may as well. But these ones had to do with a weaver woman and a wounded monk in the forest, and nursing him back to health in the confines of her tiny hut, she discovers this man is not a monk at all, but Griffin Edrickson, the son of the once esteemed royal stonemason to the late King Edward, and now a wanted outlaw. And yeah, so they were, romance / historical / religious. So anyways, I'm going to get rid of those ones, and that is all the ones that I had down here. So now I'm going to go over to my house and show you the ones that I've decided to get rid of via my Read It or Unhaul It challenge. Okay, everyone, here we are back up in the land of light and living in my library. So I have a couple boxes here. Again, this one here has mainly duplicates in it. So I've got, let's see here. I've got a couple more Elizabeth Peters ones. These ones are both, I think they're both Vicky Bliss. Oh no, one is Vicky Bliss and one is Amelia Peabody. Those ones are duplicates. I have 2 more Mary Stewarts that are duplicates, and I have 3 Barbara Michaels here, which are duplicates. That's another name for Elizabeth Peters. That was another name she wrote under. This one here, I remember really loving, The Wings of the Falcon. I remember that one was about a a girl named Francesca, who her English father dies, and she accepts shelter with the noble Italian family of her dead mother. And when she gets there, there's a mysterious horseman known as the Falcon, and I just remember really loving this one, but I do have a better copy of it. Usually when I have duplicates like this, I go through and I say, because 99% of these are from used bookstores, I'll go through and I'll pick out which one is the nicest copy, and then that's the one that I'll keep. So that's those ones. Let's see, what else do I have in here? Oh yes, I have a Dick Francis one, Dead Heat. I have a hardcover copy of this one, so that's why I'm getting rid of that one. He's one of my favorite authors. And I have, let's see, a Mary Higgins Clark that we have a duplicate of. This is another Dick Francis that I believe I have a hardcover of. This is a copy of Fahrenheit 451 by Ray Bradbury, which is one of my sister's favorite books, but we have a hardcover of that one. And this is a Frank Peretti, This Present Darkness. This is one of the few series, this is a duplicate, but this is one of the few series of Christian fiction that I'm actually keeping and going to try reading again and see what I think of it, because I remember enjoying it because it was kind of a fantasy that involved angels and demons and stuff like that. So it was a bit more of a adventure, and involved fantasy elements and stuff. So I do want to read those ones again and just see what I think of them. And I have another copy of Jane Austen's Emma. We have lots of copies of that one, and an extra copy of The Incredible Journey, which is a kid's book that I enjoyed so much when I was a kid that I do want to keep, but I have 2 copies of it. Nostalgia. And I have 3 of these ones here. They're Janet Oak, and it's from the When Breaks the Dawn, When Calls the Heart series. And this is, again, Christian fiction set in the West. It's set in the Canadian West, but this is another copy that I have huge nostalgia for, so that's why I'm keeping it. I don't know that I'll ever read it again, but I have huge nostalgia for it, so I'm going to keep that one. And what else do I have in this box? This is one of my writing books, Conflict, Action, and Suspense by William Noble. And I just have 2 copies of that, and a one called From Prairie Roots. That's a farming related one that I have 2 copies of. We'll see if it's of any interest to me when I actually pull it out of my jar. And then tuck those in. So now these are the ones that I have talked about in my various vlogs from my Read It and Unhaul It mostly here. So what do I have? Oh, this is a couple more of these. I have 4 more Mary Stuarts that are duplicates. And what do I got here? Jane Austen Persuasion, Northanger Abbey, and Mansfield Park. That again, we've got a nice box set, or not box set, but a nicer set of. So then I've got this one here, Sounder by William H. Armstrong. And if you remember from my last Read It or Unhaul It vlog, this was the book that I hated. Yeah, this one was about a boy who his father gets arrested for stealing a ham. And then it's kind of basically the situation with him afterwards and dealing with the fallout of it. But there's some animal abuse and some other things in it. And again, the author didn't bother to give anybody in the family a name, so I have felt no connection to them. And so I just didn't like that one. So that one's getting unhauled. This one you might not have seen yet, but I pulled it on my last Read It or Unhaul It. The Indian in the Cupboard by Lynn Reed Banks. And this was a book that when I was a kid seemed really cool in the early 80s, and is now extremely racist. So that one's going. Then I have all of these Max Braithwaite ones that I'm going to unhaul. It's 5 of them. This was the one that I had tried, the Commodore's Barges alongside, and the humor did not age well at all. This one was set in World War II, And yeah, there were a couple of essay scenes in there that were treated as humor. And it was kind of interesting thing is having read that book about World War II now, and with the stories of the people, I can see where some of the attitudes were very accurate in this book, but I don't think they should have been treated as humor. So, not modern day anyway. That one just didn't age well. This one here, The Maleness of God by Brenda Baker. This was that book of short stories that I had read about half of and then ended up putting, and there's where my other bookmark went. Good thing I didn't get rid of that. That's one of my special bookmarks from my friend. She draws those. It's really awesome. I knew I was missing one. Anyway, so I'd read about half of this one and then I DNF'd it because it was literary fiction and I don't know, I just wasn't feeling it. So I DNF'd it. I had 2 copies of Bone Crack by Dick Francis. Oh yes, here we go. I have another copy of that Tuesdays with Maury book that I already talked about. And then this was The 5 People You Meet in Heaven. And what year was this? Because I remember this being like so popular. Like every last person was reading it that year. 2003. Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. That was when I first moved down here and lived in town. And yeah, I remember reading it and finding it, sort of interesting, but it's not something that I'll ever read again. So I'm gonna unhaul it. Oh yeah, this is one of my sister's ones. Jaws 2. She told me I could get rid of this one because the first Jaws book sucked too, and this one would probably suck more. So we're getting rid of that one. Saga of the Bounty. This is one that I read all the way through. It's basically the papers and stories and things from the actual guys who lived it. I read it through once. I'm never going to read it again. It was sort of interesting, but could have been put together a little bit better. And but I'm never going to read it again, so I'm hauling it. This is one of my copies of Anne of Green Gables. I love this book so much, but we do have a nicer copy. So, oh yeah, this was that 1980s author and editor guide that I decided I was going to unhaul. And then the last ones in here are my Alexander McCall Smith ones. So I have the 3 No. 1 Ladies Detective Agency ones, and then this one. I had tried reading this one, Love Over Scotland. Well, actually, I tried reading, I had this one, but I took out from the library the 44 Scotland Street, which is the first one in the series, and I found it incredibly boring. So I decided to unhaul that series, and then I just decided, because it reminded me that I found his writing quite boring and a little bit kind of aloof and, distant. And I had read the first one and possibly the second one. I can't remember for sure, way back when. And I just know I'm never going to collect like the 16 or 17 books of the series and actually read them. So I may as well unhaul them. So that's why those ones are getting unhauled. So that is the books that I have so far that I'm unhauling. And I'm imagining I'll be up over 100 now because I was at 75 with the ones from the other house. And there's a few other ones that I'm unhauling as well that I just didn't show you because they're either just more of the kids' books that I had gathered or, those sorts of things. So I will see you on my next video and we'll see whether I read something or if I unhaul it. Bye!